So let's go to the Barb's Harley-Davidson Sports Hotline and welcome into the locker room a local sports agent, Jarrold Colton. What's up, Jarrold?
Hey, Billy. Hey, Bobby. How you guys doing?
Good, man. What's happening?
I don't know if you caught the beginning of the show, but we're getting heated, Jarrold, because, we're identical twins and, we just go at it, man.
Yeah, and I don't want to interfere with that. It's very
You don't get in the middle of that, huh?
Well, that's why we got Josh here. I don't know. We're streaming live. If you can see, Josh has got, we presented him with a referee jersey today.
Great. But what's up for the Sixers?
Well, I got to tell you, Joe, before we get into the Sixers, I want you to shed a little light. So how did you become involved in sports? How did you become a sports agent?
It was more accidental than anything, but something I'm really glad happened. My background was that my uncle, Jeff Millman, who passed away in 2013 and miss him dearly, was the equipment manager for the Sixers, going actually all the way back to the Warriors. He was a ball boy for the Warriors. He was with the Warriors up in Hershey when Wilt Chamberlain scored his 100 points. He was the caretaker of the ball, though got lost over the years. and then he progressed to be the equipment manager of the Sixers and really served in that capacity. And it was involved in that end of basketball, professional basketball in Philadelphia for 50 years. And the Sixers locker room is dedicated and named in his memory. I grew up as a ball boy, as he had, working for him. And it started with really the early 70s and through the Julius Erving days and things like that. And it led to a lot of connections. It wasn't necessarily intentionally that I was preparing for my career. It was just a fun thing to do as a kid. And then when I became a lawyer, I knew a lot of local people in the sports world. It's amazing how Philadelphia is such a hub of sports, and then it proliferates and people spread out and the tentacles go wide. So I started doing, when I got out of law school, started doing some legal work for a lot of people, the Eagles players and coaches. That coaching staff had guys like John Gruden, Jeff Fisher on it. Those guys then spread out around the league. And unintentionally, I had contacts all over the league. I became friends with a guy named Boomer Esiason, who is amazing. The younger listeners don't remember what a great quarterback Boomer was. And Boomer was represented early in his career by David Falk, who was the agent in the 80s and the 90s, mostly in basketball. People are certainly familiar with one of his clients, Michael Jordan, and I like to bust Boomer. I like to bust Boomer when I give talks. I always ask audiences, I do a lot of lecturing or teaching, and I always ask audiences, and a lot of the younger members don't know who Boomer is, and the ones who do only know him like from his media days. So
see, that's surprising right there.
It's true,
it really is. I mean, the MVP of the league in 1988, he was so good, he actually led the Cincinnati Bengals to the Super Bowl. That says a lot. They haven't won a playoff game since he left in 1991. They literally haven't. But so Boomer became a friend, and I started doing some work for him, and he was represented by David and his big agency. David was really prominent in basketball, but had a number of football players. And he just felt that I was more in tune with his life, had less of an ego, and would dedicate myself in more. And as I said, unintentionally, I had contacts all around the league. So Boomer pushed me. I was hesitant at first. He felt I was going to be better than David Falk at it, and David Falk was the tops in the world, so I never knew why he felt that way. But after we did a conference call, and it was really hard for me to do it, to get three people in the line at once, myself, David, and Boomer. You have no idea how hard that was technologically back then. And I listened to David, and David, I have so much regard for. He's brilliant. He's been incredibly successful. He's still involved very much. But I can understand why Boomer felt he needed someone else.
So Jarrold, you need to get Louis Capelli as a sports agent. That's what you need to do.
Well, you mentioned that we were law school classmates. I hold Louis in such high regard, and I'll tell you what, he does such a great job on behalf of the citizens of Camden County and New Jersey and overall, and as well as being a great lawyer and great person. So Louis would be good at anything he does. But he's probably better suited right where he is.
Hey, Jarrold, who are some of your people you represent right now?
Well, it's actually, it's funny how the business goes. You got to stay really, really active and really fresh. We've got some nice young players that we're working with and working on. But through the years, I've been really fortunate with the people that the listeners would be more familiar with. And it was mostly NFL, would be David Akers. There was a local Philadelphia athlete, a player named Jari Evans, who might be the best guard of all time, went to Bloomsburg, but people don't really know that position and aren't really familiar. It's so anonymous, but really is a spectacular player, just not nominated for the College Football Hall of Fame. And when his time passes for the NFL, I'm sure he'll be in there. Some other great players were Anthony Henry, and I've been really fortunate to have great players, great people.
We're talking with Jarrold Colton, local sports agent. Now, Jarrold, you actually have a podcast called All Pro Philly podcast.
Well, the All Pro Philly Show, and I do that on. People can catch it on Philly Voices YouTube channel. It's also on Spotify and a whole bunch of other ways to catch it. And it's also going to be. I've been doing broadcasting for iHeart's Fox Sports The Gambler out of Philadelphia. The pandemic certainly hurt with a few things, and we had to take a little bit of hiatus. But we're back. We're back up and running. That's 102.5 in Philadelphia. Not to compete with you guys, because I don't think our
signal doesn't come down here,
and yours doesn't come up.
Hey, Jarrold, do you do any baseball or basketball? I mean, do you ever?
I have represented a number of baseball players in their legal and personal matters. I was never certified for the MLBPA, because you have to be certified to negotiate contracts on behalf of players. In baseball, the requirement has always been to have a player on the 40-man roster. And baseball takes a long time. Between my sports representation as well as my legal practice, I made a decision a long time ago to sort of just focus on the NFL.
Okay.
I probably messed up a little bit, because I had some young players in the early 2000s that wound up being pretty good that I was helping out. Marlon Byrd, a guy named Ryan Howard. And had I chosen to make this foray into baseball, I might have been able to build
the reason why I bring that up is because actually today, right now, the game between Mainland and Ocean City is starting to go for the Group 3 championship, South Jersey, and I know most of those players on that team, and along with the guy that graduated last year from Ocean City, who's out in Phoenix, he's competing for a single A position. And I think he has an agent, but he hardly even talks to the guy. I have some connections coming up in the baseball world that might need an agent.
I would be happy to team up with you. Baseball has always been a real passion of mine. My kids played it to a high level. My son was actually the bat boy for the Phillies for 4 years, from 2013 to 2016. It's funny how it works. The bat boy who preceded him was there for the World Series years, both the victory and then the loss the next year, Yankees. They gave him a full World Series share both times, which combined for about $500,000 and 2 rings for the kid. My son was there for awful losing seasons, but had an incredible experience with it.
We're talking with Jarrold Colton, local sports agent. Jarrold, how accurate is the movie Jerry Maguire?
That one hasn't been mentioned for a while, but in my life, it was pretty accurate. It was.
Show me the money.
but I always believed in the value of a small agency. And, remember, I mentioned that I took over for David Falk for Boomer because he wanted someone who was really in tune with him and not just a big agency representing a lot of players. And that's the kind of boutique service I always prided myself on. And so in my life, what Jerry Maguire was about, giving the hands-on, personalized service to just a few athletes. At that point, it was just one, but I think he probably grew after Rob Tidwell's contract. But it was very, very true. And the thing about it is that it is a very all-consuming career. It's a literally 24-hour existence.
Yeah, you have
with
to
the phone
be
next to you, and you got to be on call, and you got to be ready, you got to be available. And each person who puts their trust in you, who hires you as their agent, they're giving you more than just to do their contract. They're putting their life in your hands. And I always took that responsibility as both an honor as well as a tremendous responsibility. For me, it was very, very true. It probably led to the demise of my marriage as well.
Well, you didn't have to bring that up.
I think my clients probably became a little more important for me than my wife liked.
That's funny. All right, hey, Joe, let's turn our attention to the Sixers, because I know you love basketball, and I thought it was a great team win last night. But this Sixers team, how far can they go?
Well, they can certainly win the championship. They're 10 wins away from being an NBA champion. And there's some things they do, I think, at least as well, if not better, than the rest of the league. So much of it comes down to, will Embiid stay healthy? Because that's their only hope to win it, and he scares the heck out of me all the time.
Grabbing his knee last night.
Well, listen, they're up 17 points with 6 minutes to go, and he hurdles Capella. He gets himself in trouble and leaping in the air. He does that kind of stuff all the time. Now, you don't want to take away what he does. You just wish maybe he would pick his spots a little better.
Yeah, Billy and I were talking about that, how that makes us nervous every time he flops on the floor or whatnot. You just hold your breath because you think that he's going to get up.
Hey, Jarrold, as an agent, would you pull your player aside and say, "Listen, man, I know this is game 3 of the playoffs, but you got to take it easy."
Bill, it's a great question, and I guess one of the things that I always thought is you got to know your lane. And I would always talk to my players about the game, about how they played, but I really didn't give advice like that. As far as an injury, like, hey, listen, you might want to be a little bit more careful. I might have that conversation, but otherwise, I think you got to let Embiid be Embiid because with that comes so much of the good stuff.
I agree with that.
He has been so terrific during these playoffs when he's been on the court, and they need him on the court. But the other thing that the Sixers do is they really play superior defense. And I know Ben Simmons gets a lot of criticism, and he's such an enigma, but it starts with him. And he is so terrific on the defensive end. I do think that they can beat anybody. They can also lose to anybody, and we've seen that as well. But I think they are so superior to this Atlanta Hawks team that just took them to get past that first game and to show that.
We're talking with Jarrold Colton, local sports agent. Jarrold, the Sixers organization, I mean, they've been criticized for the process. Hinkie when he was there. What do you think about that whole? Like, was that all worth it where we are today?
If they win the championship this year or sometime during the Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons era, I'm sure the supporters of the process will have their validation and vindication. And I won't even complain at that point. I hated the process, absolutely despised it for lots of reasons. I thought it was anti what the league and what basketball and the game and sportsmanship is all about. From a business standpoint, as a lifelong, or at least from my adult lifelong season ticket holder, pays big money to the Sixers every year for season tickets. It got me so mad. It was so infuriating that for 4 years they charged me full price for tickets when they were intentionally putting on a lousy product. When Brett Brown would stand in front of the TV cameras and lie on behalf of the organization that Embiid was hurt for 3 years and couldn't play, that Ben Simmons couldn't play his whole rookie year, and they took this whole position to intentionally lose, yet charge us full price. Right. And the second they got decent, double those prices.
Yeah, exactly. Billy and I ripped on that. We ripped on that for a long time.
And I will never get over that because it showed that the Josh Harris-led organization doesn't give a damn about its fans, and don't ever be fooled that they do. By the same token, they did get products and fruits out of that. No, I felt that they screwed it up, but they lucked into Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. They could have done that just by trying and sucking,
right.
or winning the lottery or whatever. I mean, listen, at the same time that the Sixers hired Brett Brown to intentionally lose for 4 years, the Celtics went out and got a great young coach in Brad Stevens from Butler, who had just gone to 2 finals. The Celtics were in a pretty bad position. They've been relevant this whole time. No, they haven't won a championship either, and that's what it really comes down to. So, and they also then they get slapped by the NBA for intentionally losing and forced to bring in Jerry Colangelo, who never won anything in the NBA. He never won anything. And he does a worldwide search for the best general manager. Jerry Colangelo searches the world, and guess who he comes up with? Brian Colangelo! And what's he do? He takes what Hinkie has done in intentionally losing and building the assets, and he immediately makes a trade with the dreaded Boston Celtics by throwing in the first-round pick, trading up 2 spots, picking a guy who plays the same position as the guy he just picked first in Ben Simmons, and the guy couldn't play basketball to save his life, and the Celtics got a first-round pick, and the guy they wanted anyhow in Jason Tatum. There's lots of moves like that. They did so much wrong, but they lucked into Joel Embiid sitting at 3 because he had been hurt. And they got Ben Simmons, who I still very much believe in, and kind of nothing else out of it.
And you know what's so funny? Through all that, here we were last night on the edge of our seats, cheering our hearts out because we love the Phillies, Sixers, Flyers, and Eagles, and it's ingrained in us. We grew up here. These teams are a big part of our lives. We love them.
Well, Billy, as I said, look, I grew up as a ball boy. I grew up with my uncle as part of the organization. I actually, one of my most prized possessions in the world, probably the most, is the 1983 championship ring that my uncle left me. Wow. The Sixers mean a lot to me. I rode in the parade after 1983. I was out with them in L.A. when they won the championship, pouring champagne in the locker room. And then I got to ride in the parade on my 21st birthday, June 2nd, 1983. It was a parade celebrating the championship they had won 2 days earlier. One of the greatest memories of my life. and my kids have grown up as ball boys also. I bleed Sixers red, probably Sixers blue. I don't like the black. and even in my career as a sports agent, which often takes you away from being a fan, you just root for your guys, not for teams. I have always been a passionate Sixers fan. They mean so much to me. So the stuff that bothers me in decisions of a front office or management or the way they treat people, I don't let it affect how much I root for them. I am a passionate Sixers fan and will be to the day I die.
All right, there he is, Jarrold Colton. Hey, man, I really appreciate it. It was a great conversation. Nice to talk to you. We'll do it again.
Hey, Billy, anytime, but I got to tell you, the promo that runs right before you break into us has all these, like, real celebrity guests.
Well, we try to get the best here.
Well, come on, we had Joe Namath on. We had Rich Gannon on. We had Dick Vermeil. We keep him in the locker room.
Let me apologize for your listeners. You had to slum today, but it was an honor to be part of it.
Joe, listen, we really appreciate it. We had a lot of fun, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great rest of your weekend.
My pleasure. You too, guys.
There he is, Jarrold Colton on the Barb's Harley Davidson Sports Hotline.